Hi, everybody. Welcome to Monthly Mysteries with Amy and Shari. And tonight we have a special guest, Mel Doerr, the Aloha shirt psychic. Yay!
Yay!
And I'm seriously thinking about doing a still shot of that last frame of the new out intro and making that my new uh, uh, business card.
I like that.
I
That'd be a
like
good
that. I
idea.
like the way it looks. I'm like, oh, that's so cool looking, so kind of fits. Um,
Yes.
so anyway, just want to welcome everybody. A little bit of house cleaning before we get started. Um, if you're looking for beautiful jewelry, handcrafted designs used with real stones, real gold, real silver. Jules Handcrafted Design. Jules is one of my members, and she's on. I think she's like on all of our channels all the time, and she lives like 3 miles from me. We live right in the same city together, and she's got an Etsy shop, and she's got some beautiful, beautiful jewelry there. And of course, we have Trish James cards. That's the governance deck, the predictions deck, and I just got the new personal predictions deck.
You got them all,
So
y'all.
I'm waiting for it to charge up so I can start using it. And then,
I
of
like when you
course,
say
we
charge.
have, huh?
I like when you say charge up. I like that.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
to charge them up, get them ready.
Vroom.
And then we have Otter Spirit, which I'm ashamed to say I don't actually have one of their bracelets on today. I was wearing my turquoise, and I don't have a turquoise bracelet yet from them. But they use AAA or above gemstones, and they're handcrafted. And every purchase, money goes towards the Wild Otters of Monterey Bay who
Yay.
almost went extinct. And if you use my link and coupon code, you can get for the month of November. If you use Shari 35, you can get 35% off orders over $99. Or you can use Shari 20 and you get 20% off any order whenever you place an order anytime. And all of that's in the description box below. And of course, the wonderful and one and only
Yes.
Andro Miki Skincare. I love it, love it, love it. This is hands down the best skincare I have ever used in my life. And I
Yes.
have used tons of skincare of every variety and expense that one can find in a department store or a specialty store or a drugstore, or this stuff beats it hands down. That's the website. It's also in the description box below. Thank you, Mel, for introducing me to Andrew and his wonderful products.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And no, I don't make any money off of any of it. I just, if I like it and it works, I'm gonna pop it up there on the screen. So
I got to
if
add something to that.
you if you make something, if you design things, if you are creative in any way like that, and you have like a website or an Etsy store or anything, send me information about it so I can go in and check it out. Send me a sample of something if it's something that somebody would use, and if it lines up with my ethical value of how good I think it should be, you're going to get spotlighted there as well. So,
Can I just add something?
yes, sir, you can.
Okay. I just did the event with Benicia, with Linda Grindle, Annette, um,
Uh huh.
uh, uh, Kristen, and
Uh,
Joy Joe. Um, and Andrew sent gift bags with a full product line, a box, and put them in the gift bag. Uh, for each of our attendees. I think there was 60 attendees, and I'm getting emails from some of the people, and they're just raving about Andrew Nikki, and that was very kind of him to do that.
Yeah, a full set is not cheap. I
No.
mean, the joy about his product is you get the base moisturizer, and then you get the serums, and so you can buy a kit which comes with certain serums, and there's different kits you can get, or you can go in and individually buy whatever serum you need to use. It's for dry skin, oily skin, breakout skin, aging skin. I mean, there's all these different varieties and levels of skincare, that because our skin is not different, everybody's different. And so you find what works for you. And if only one or two of the serums works, then you don't need to order a whole kit. All you need is those one or two serums, and so that's what's really cool about it, is you can kind of change it up according to what your skin needs are for that day. And that's really unique. You don't normally see that. Now to Amy's YouTube channel and stuff is in the description box below. I ran out of time and didn't get it put in a banner. I do apologize. I will have that done in the future.
All right.
To contact Mel, you can go to meldoerr.com, or you can go to his YouTube channel, or you can call him at 847-590-5411. All of that information is in the description box below. Now, for next up, let me look at my dates here. We've got the Danube River trip that Mel is doing May 10th through 20th. If you're interested, go to his website or call his office. Then we have the Iceland Land of Fire and Ice trip for the Northern Lights, right? Am I right?
Northern Lights. We won't be able to see the Northern Lights on this trip
because it's going to be daylight there, right? Okay.
Daylight a lot, but we will see the eclipse, the solar eclipse.
For the solar eclipse. So he's also doing that trip. And if you're interested, contact Mel. And then he's going to Ecuador's
Galapagos.
Thank you. I can never say it when I look at it. Island tour dates. He's going to be doing that. So again, if you're interested, give Mel a call. He does wonderful, wonderful tour trips. And one of these years, I'm going to actually own a passport and have enough money to do that. And I'll go
yeah, same.
And okay, and that's it for now. For us, I'm through with the beginning stuff. That took 10 minutes.
Okay. Keeping, yes.
That's it. So today we are, as y'all know, monthly mysteries. Amy and I pick out a couple of cold cases, paranormal cases, weird things that go bump in the night, whatever, and do readings on them to see if we can gather any additional information. So Amy had picked out, we're going to look at the Grand Hotel of Mackinac Island, and then we're going to look at the haunted history of Fort Michelin on Mackinac. Is it also in the island?
It's Michelle Mackinac, I think.
Michelle Mackinac. Okay, and because it was a French fort before it became an English fort, before it became an American fort. So it's kind of gone through the ringer there. So a lot of French men and Americans. You got some history there. Let me tell you what. And then Mel has some pictures of some places that he's actually been that we're gonna talk about, and he can tell us all about their history and what was going on. And so Mel, since you're our guest, I'm going to make you go first.
Okay.
And I'm going to put up the first image That's a hospital, y'all.
Well,
Check that.
Gorgeous.
it's not being used any longer. This was on our trip to France. We just got back. It was a Rhone River tour. It was really cool. But this name of the town, I'm probably mispronouncing it, Beaune, Beaune, Bonne. And this was, we'll call it a hospital. It's medieval. It was built, I think, in the 14 or 1500s. But it was really, there was a big part of it that was like in this long part, the long part here to the left. It was for the poor people, for indigent. And the building itself was not heated. And if you'll go to the next picture where you see the beds, if you'll just click on, there you go. So you can see the little nightstand. Now, there was a law passed in France that there could only be 2 people per bed. So you had to share a bed with somebody. And these curtains, the beds are open on either side, and the nuns would walk behind to take care of the homeless or the patients. There were sick people there. Now, in this place, it's like a church. There's a chapel at one end. It's a beautiful chapel. And in those days, really up until 1900s, this was huge, but it was not heated. There was no heat whatsoever. So how did you stay?
Yeah, you can see how high up the roof is there.
You're way high up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how do people stay warm? Well, 2 in a bed. And they had these bed warmers. They were these big contraptions, and they would put like hot coals in the bottom and get it warm.
Yes.
And that would warm the bed. And these curtains would close on both sides. So that created like a little microclimate.
Yep.
But when, it was for indigent people. And there's just, on one side of the building, there's this long row of these beds, and on the other side, and I like these little bedside tables, there's a little bowl, water pitcher, things like that. But I did feel spirit presence there. And these were not malevolent spirits. I think they were just spirits guarding the place, and of people who had maybe been there as patients. But also, I felt a couple of spirits of nuns who were there. They weren't earthbound, but I could feel their presence as well, because the nuns would take care of these people, and it was very. I mean, it was
so they're still caring for people.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So what is the difference between haunting, just our residual energy? Residual energy is energy that is stored. Everything's like a tape recorder. And for those of us who are sensitive, like I actually touched one of these beds, and I got flashes of 2 of the people who were in that bed. That would be residual energy I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
A spirit presence gives you more of a can be a physical manifestation. It's the actual visitation from the spirit. So there's a difference. A lot of people think things are haunted because they're feeling the residual energy. I felt both. But the nuns I saw as clearly as I'm looking at you all, and I could see their habits, kind of like the flying nun.
Yeah.
Research, their habits look like that. And the 2 people in the bed were 2 men. One had this horrible cough. Now, many, many years ago, they called it consumption. And now we know it as tuberculosis.
Yeah.
So I feel like this man, I asked his age, and I heard 35, which was, and it was in the 1600s is what I picked up. And he looked emaciated, albeit the food was good, but he was dying of consumption or tuberculosis. They didn't know much about infection in those days. They didn't know how things were spread. The other person I didn't feel had TB. That was more like a case of pneumonia. And then I actually saw how the man that was 35 died. I could see his death. And the younger one, who was about 19 or 20, lived and later on became a priest. So I got glimpses of his entire life. It was pretty interesting stuff. So, it was just full of residual energy and spirit presence, and it was really cool.
Wow.
So if you ever get to Beaune, Beaune, France, and go visit, it's called a hostel. Means kind of like it was a hospital. And it's funny because in one wing they have all the surgical equipment and things like that. It was boy, thank goodness we live in this time, in this day and age, where we have heat and air conditioning.
Yes.
and
Oh yeah.
But in those days that medical
And vaccinations.
But the thing that impressed me is people didn't take baths a lot back in those days, because and didn't drink the water because the water was so bad. And if you drank it, chances are you'd get sick and die. So they drank a lot of wine, a lot of beer. But the thing that impressed me, and I mean, this is obviously the beds, what you're seeing here they're very clean. But psychically, when I was looking at it back then, I didn't get much of a smell. So it looks like that the nuns kept people pretty clean, because in those days, they thought that disease was caused from bad smells, bad humor. And so it was pretty amazing, considering in the 1600s, the people weren't real clean. I mean, they might have taken a bath twice a year, whether they needed it or not.
I just watched a video, Mr. Ballin, where he was talking about there was a doctor in the late 1800s who was fanatical about his surgical team washing their hands, dipping their hands in an acidic mix
with carbolic acid water.
And one of his head nurses, who he was actually secretly in love with, he noticed how it was destroying the skin on her hand and her arms. And so he designed and had someone create something to protect her hands so she didn't have to stick it in the acid anymore. He was the person who created and designed surgical gloves that we use to this day. I have a box of surgical gloves that I keep in my kitchen, and anytime I deal with raw meat, I put a pair on. I do not touch raw meat anymore without my gloves on.
Good idea.
A fresh set of gloves.
That's a good idea.
I got food poisoning once, and let me tell you, it was not fun. It was not fun at all. I was throwing up blood for days. I mean, it's like, and I've been kind of freaked out about that kind of stuff ever since. And
for those of you who like to cook, and if you're going to wear rubber gloves, but you're going to handle this piece of meat, then don't handle this piece of meat. Take them off,
right.
Put on another glove, because cross-contamination.
I can't do the latex because I'm allergic to latex, so I have to do the nitro.
Yeah.
Those gloves, and so
it wasn't until the 1800s, I think it was Louis Pasteur or whatever, that they kind of got an idea about germs. They looked in their microscope and they saw these little things going around, and they called them beasties, beasties.
Beasties.
And what they noticed, and what Shari you're talking about, is that there was a high rate of people dying from infection. All right.
Yeah.
And it was infection. They just didn't know what caused it until they discovered beasties. Okay. But what they found out was when the surgeons and people like that didn't wash their hands, they had this higher mortality rate. But when they used the carbolic acid solution mixed with water, patients didn't have as many infections, and the mortality went really low.
Right.
And so I started thinking, I didn't know the story about the rubber gloves, but I'm a history geek.
I learned it last night. I saw the video last
He's
night,
good.
and I was like, because I like Mr. Ballin, and I just every now and again I'll go catch up with his channel, and it was one of the videos, and I just clicked on it to see what it was about. It was like, God, that's fascinating. I never knew that either. I mean,
Well, you have
so
to realize that I forget who there was a Greek doctor or something. He taught about the the four humors, was it? Phlegm, black bile. There was four, I forget.
yeah,
Even in the 1600s, they were still talking about that stuff up until the invention of the microscope. And I think that was in the 16 or 1700s. I forget the
yeah,
guy's
something.
name or something.
I
But
think it was in the 1600s. Yeah,
if you go back though to the to the 1600s or 1500s, when we're talking about with this hospital, it's amazing to me that the nuns that ran the place, they had this idea of cleanliness, and they didn't know, people thought if something smelled bad, obviously stay away from it, but they didn't know what caused disease. And
yeah.
so just an imbalance in the humors,
And a
right?
lot of diseases got passed from patient to patient to patient because
Right.
doctors or caregivers didn't even wash their hands with just basic soap and water between patients. They would just move from patient to patient to patient.
No.
And so whatever patient A had, patient D was likely to get it as well because it was on their hands. So
Right.
Mhm.
But it was
and it,
amazing how kind of clean they were for that time, in that particular place.
yeah,
But hospitals, well, this was more like a place for the indigent. It got the name hospital. Sick people were there, but
right.
back in those days, you probably didn't want to go to a doctor. I mean,
Speaking of coughs,
yeah, they're speaking of such.
Sorry, my allergies are giving me fits
Yeah,
today.
mine too. But
Yeah,
I felt spirit presence there, and it was so cool. I would have loved to have spent the night in the place, but unfortunately they wouldn't let us.
God, y'all excuse me. Wow. I mean, I'm just, ooh,
that's all right, girl. Do what you need to
By the
do.
way, Shari, I like your haircut.
ooh. Oh, thank you. Yes, I went and got my hair cut this afternoon. It
Yes, you
wound up
did.
being a little shorter than we had planned, but it had been so long since I had it cut that it was so full of dead ends that I was like, I don't care how short, just get rid of the dead ends
Hmm.
and give it a little texture and shape. And the young lady that did it, she was a brand new student. I go to a beauty school to get my hair done. And so she was very nervous trying to cut my hair. And I always bring pictures with me of what I would like it to look like when it's done. Now, some of them are real good at getting close to it. Some of them aren't. And some of them are so afraid to take that snip. It's going to be too short. I'm like, it grows back, and my hair, it grows back really fast. So it's not a big deal. Um, and so I was really, really pleased. She did a really good job with it today. I was really happy with it. And so a 1920s dress, and I'm hip.
There's somebody, and it's funny talking about travel. Innocent Potato says the last time I bought a passport was in 1984. It was $10.
Not
She says,
anymore.
I'm sure it's $100. Actually, the cost is $130 for the application fee. Then they
Mhm.
tack on another $35 for the execution fee, whatever that
Yep.
means. So it's going to cost you $165. And if you want it expedited, you got to pay like more money to get it quicker. So
In Michigan, in Michigan, ours cost 180.
there you go.
When Lewis was in high school, that was what, back in the 90s, late 90s, and one summer, the youth group he was involved with were going down to a Central America country, and I can't remember the name of it now. An earthquake had hit, and it wiped out one of the schools. And so they were sending two different groups of kids, one group to go down and like clean the rubble and prepare for the other group, older kids, to come down and start helping the builders rebuild. And he was with the cleanup crew. And I had to get him a passport then. I think it was like $60 at that time for him to get a passport. And then he wound up getting his passport renewed when he joined the Navy because he went around the world
for nothing.
and he got that for nothing. That's it. He's actually known as a shellback, and there's another name to go with it. He's been over the international date line back and forth, over to the other side and then back again. And so there's special nicknames that the Navy gives their sailors when they go over the international date line and then when they come back across. So I actually found a couple of t-shirts that has it on the front, and so I bought those for him. He was tickled to death to have them. First time he wore one, there was like 3 or 4 guys that would go to the club where he works. And he never really talked to him. He just recognized him, hey, how are you? The minute they saw their shirt, turned to find out they were Navy. They were shellbacks too.
Yeah, my brother's a shellback. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's amazing how little things like that can really open up a discussion with somebody that you maybe never really would have talked to before. Just kind of, hey, how are you? And that's as far as it goes. But talking about, Mel, when you were talking about going in and touching the beds and getting that flash of stuff happening, when Lewis was stationed, when he got his orders, they sent him to Pearl Harbor. That was his home port. And when he got back from his second deployment, he flew Mama out to Hawaii for a week. Crossed that off my bucket list, and all expense paid. I mean, he paid for my ticket. I stayed at his house with him, and he took me to the Arizona Memorial, which is a boat out to where the Arizona is, which is in the middle of the bay there. There's like a floating bridge work that spans the ship. And you take little boats out, you get out, and you go onto this floating bridge where you can literally walk across the span of the ship, look down, and you can see it. It looks like you could just reach down and touch the ship.
It's looks still leaking oil, by the way.
And it's still, yes, there are still little pockets of bubbles of oil that still come up. There's a couple of the big turrets, that the big smoke turrets on the ship that were higher than the water was deep, and so they still stick up out of the ground and are super rusted. Don't know how much longer they're going to last like that. And there's a few other things that are still protruding out of the water. But when we stepped onto that flotilla, within seconds, I literally couldn't catch my breath, and I didn't understand why. And it felt like I was drowning. I literally could not breathe. It felt like I was breathing water. And I held it together as best I could, but it was scary. And when you walk across the span of the bridge, on the far wall is this marble wall, and it's all the names of the sailors who died when the Arizona was sunk. And then along one side of the bridgeway, there's like a half wall that runs the length, and it's all the names of those who survived, who when they died, they requested to be interred into the ship with their shipmates. And so the Navy does this twice a year. It's a special ceremony. They have special naval divers, special urns that they put their ashes in, and they have a special ceremony they do where the families and all are there, and then they dive down and they go put the urns down into the ship with their shipmates. And I didn't even know they did that until we went out there. And it was just it was remarkable just to stand there and touch the railings on the walkway, because it wasn't just feeling like I was drowning, but I was picking up the emotions of the fear of the men, and that they knew they couldn't get out and they were going to die. And it was the feelings of the families that have come to visit and those who survived that have come to visit. It was overwhelming. And it was like right at the beginning of me kind of opening my senses back up, to the point it almost made me slam the door shut again, because it was so overwhelming. I was just, it was just like came at me. And but then I realized, I guess if I'm going to open this door, this is what I got to expect. I just didn't expect it. And I didn't know how to shield myself from the onslaught of it. It was that overwhelming. But yeah, it's powerful when you touch something historical and you just, it's like, boom, you're there. You just,
that is what we would call residual energy. And by
right.
the way, the Arizona Memorial is now reopened. It was closed for a while because they had to do repair work and all of that, but it's now reopened as of November the 1st. But it really,
it's a remarkable place to visit.
There's a flagpole there that's actually touching the ship, and you touch that flagpole, and that's when I got a flood of information. It was like, whoa.
Lewis got a beautiful picture of it the day we were there. It was a bright blue sky, and he was like kind of down, like squatting down and aiming up. And you just see this pole going up, and then the flag blowing in the wind coming out, and it turned into a beautiful picture. I have it saved. I'll have to find it. And
here's a picture from above, so I'll show you. You can. You're right. This goes to from the starboard, the port side of the ship, midships, and they kind of built the thing you walk out on to look like a boat, so you can see the ship here underwater. If you can see that picture, and that's the Arizona Memorial. And this white thing is the walkway across.
That's the walkway. Yeah, it's like it's like a long opened hallway, and it's really amazing. And the water, of course, is so clear there that you look down and it feels like the ship is only 40 feet deep.
Yeah, it's not deep.
But at the time that it was sunk, they didn't have the equipment to go down and get them out.
Couldn't. They're still entombed there. It's funny when you fly into Honolulu, and it depends on how they come in, but you fly over Pearl Harbor, and the entrance to the harbor is when the Japanese came with the planes, they dropped torpedoes, and that was called Torpedo Alley.
Mm-hmm.
When you fly over that, at least I was picking up, I had a flash of what it was like to be in one of the Japanese bombers looking down Torpedo Alley. And every time I fly over that, I get different psychic flashes and then there was one part where I just felt I was almost like flying over it, and I could see these ships just turning over and burning and people running and screaming. So every time I fly over Torpedo Alley, I get these different psychic hits on it.
Yeah, there was also, and it's not talked about very much, but it's one of the few captains that did not get court-martialed for purposefully sinking his ship. And that was when as Torpedo Bay and bombs and ships are blowing up, and his was one of the large ships that had made it out of the bay. And they found out that there was a flotilla coming towards them to come into the bay to take over the island. And he turned his ship around and went sideways across the opening and sunk his own ship.
Yeah, so that would block
it, so they could not get into the bay,
right? And
into the port, and which is remarkable. But they almost court-martialed him for it. Until somebody was like, "Are you out of your effing mind? This man saved
the day."
Saved the day with.
Yeah.
And
it's funny that with what the things we're talking about here, psychic energy is fueled by an emotion,
Yeah.
And people say, why do we always predict tragedies or bad things? We don't. We predict good things too. But it's typically things that, well, with a lot of people, if it has an emotional charge, whether it's sadness, tragedy, happiness, whatever. And so whenever I'm flying across Torpedo Alley or when I take people to visit the memorial or whatever, some of it's residual energy. I actually feel some of the spirits too. But you're going to feel things like that at Pearl Harbor or even on Torpedo Alley or even going on the Missouri. You're going to feel it a lot stronger because it's the energy and that psychic energy fueled by the emotion, all the emotions, collective emotions of what happened on the day.
Yeah.
So psychic energy is fueled by emotion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I spent a good portion of my childhood living in Northwest Florida, right next to an Air Force base. And my uncle was a jet mechanic. So, he worked there on the base. And there were several times when, he got permission for us to come over and come look at the planes and stuff with him. And even as a kid, and I didn't understand what was happening, I can remember going up and like touching one of the planes that had been brought back from Vietnam, or one of the helicopters that had been brought back. And it was like, whoa. I mean, and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand it at all. But so, yeah, it can be very overwhelming. And when you don't know what's happening, it can be really scary because you feel like you're kind of going crazy for a minute, what the hell's going on?
It's just overwhelming.
It is very overwhelming.
It's a tsunami of things that just hit you.
Yeah.
Yeah. My first experience with psychic things was when I was 2 years old. I didn't see anything, but I felt it, and it freaked me out.
Yeah.
We lived on in Quantico, Virginia, because my dad was a Marine, and we lived on the base there. And my mom and I were out by one of the planes with my dad, and I looked at it, and I kind of went like this with my little 2-year-old hand, and what I felt was like electricity, and it just went woof, and electricity, and I just went ah, and started crying because I didn't know.
Yeah, a 2-year-old's not going to know, unless their parents are highly intuitive and can explain it to them.
Neither of them
I was
are.
9 before I got a semi explanation of, oh, you've got the gift too, and that was the end of the discussion. So I didn't know what the hell that meant, but I wasn't sure if I wanted it or not. But yeah, so I mean, when you pick stuff up like that, if you can document how you're feeling or what experience you got, was it an emotional response? Was it you saw something, you heard something? And there are people that go to Gettysburg all the time that go there and see the Civil War reenacted, and it's all just place memories. It's just, there was so much that happened there that it just continues. That energy just plays over and over and over again.
Somebody in the chat put about Flight 93 Memorial right shortly after 9/11. It was a couple years after. I forget exactly when it was, but no, it was like, when was it? No, it was, they hadn't built, there was a memorial, but it hadn't, like the memorial that's there now had not been built. It was a fence around it. And so Gary and I visited the place where Flight 93 went down. And somebody in the chat said that there's a friend that is an empath and went there and she had to leave right away. I was crying. I mean, there was this whole psychic wave of stuff that hit me. And I was having flashes of what happened on the airplane. And then, it was flying upside down when it finally crashed. And then I had visions of what the people on the scene actually saw when they first arrived. There really wasn't much. It was just pieces, little tiny pieces of things.
Yeah.
But it's here again, the emotional, the psychic energy is fueled by emotion, and the tragedy and the fear and the sadness and everything. It just boom, it amplified that psychic energy. I didn't feel any spirits there. I felt like the spirits of the people on board the aircraft, with the exception of the terrorist, had crossed right to the light.
Good.
I've heard people say that. Yeah.
However, the terrorist that did it, I felt that they were not with the light. They were stuck. They were stuck on the. They were stuck. They were earthbound. They couldn't come to Earth, and they couldn't go to the light. And they wanted to be walked over. And I'm like, no, you have to atone for what you did. And they're saying they thought they were right, but no, you weren't right.
I mean,
but the people on the aircraft, I felt, I just saw this collective golden, white, beautiful light. And everybody in the fuselage on that plane or wherever they were, it was like a congregation of people that there was with the light. That was I think the passengers, they went right over. But
yeah. Well, living in the deep South, I mean, there is every other building you walk into, there's some kind of energy you're going to pick up. I have walked around just in fields or on campus or in town where you have these 100, 200-year-old live oak trees and have leaned against them, not thinking about it, or touched them and not think about it. And the flood of emotions that comes through, it's not just the earth energy of the tree that comes through, but it's all of these emotions of what was done around that particular tree or with that particular tree. I mean, I've touched it, and then suddenly I'm seeing men hanging from the tree that kind of freaked me out. And I've leaned up against one, not thinking, and I could feel the earth energy, like the I guess what the Irish would call the sprites, or the earth fairies or whatever. And I could feel them just like moving and working in and around the tree, and the life of that, it's really quite amazing to just walk through and touch random things sometimes, and just to see what you pick up. I mean,
it's funny, but here we think something of 100 or 200, like a building, is old. Europe, I mean, you're going in houses
thousands of years,
400, 500 years old. Like this hospice center that we were in, that's like 600 years old. It's like, whoa. I was in the UK a couple of times, and I stayed in a place, and it was in Winchester, where that song Winchester Cathedral, Anyway, There had been a convent, and there had been this and that. So I was eating, and I said to the waitress, I said, is this place haunted? And her response was classic, with that British kind of, dear, you're in the UK. Everything is haunted.
Yes.
I was like, that was perfect.
I was going to say, I don't think there's a place you can go in the UK without hitting a haunted spot. So
I was like, okay, let me close my eyes and point. And boy, I stayed in a place that was Langshot Manor in Horley, the little town of Horley. And I think it was in the like county or area of Surrey. And it had been a British country house, but now it's a hotel. I think it was about 500 or 600 years old. And boy, just the residual energy of that. And the room I was in, you open the window and it's this stained leaded glass, and it's really cool. And, I didn't really feel a spirit presence, but I felt the residual energy. and it was
Yeah.
incredible. I'm like, wow. So
Yeah. Yeah,
that's something
absolutely.
I
It's like
probably
walking through some of the old cemeteries down here because
Oh, I
for,
can't do that.
many, many, many years, everybody was buried above the ground because if you put a coffin in the ground, it's going to pop up
going to get
because of
wet
the water
Hello.
level.
because you're below
And
sea level New Orleans.
yeah, so they would, if they didn't put you in a mausoleum, they would have a stone or concrete crypt, like outer coffin that they would put you in that and then seal it off. And so you can walk through the older cemeteries and you see all of these above ground graves. And it can be kind of spooky looking if you drive by at dusk or a really foggy morning. It's like, hold your breath and try to get by it real quick. I can remember as a kid, but
I still hold my breath
it's
when I pass
just,
by. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's just there's there's so much history just in our country alone, dating back hundreds and hundreds of years, even before the white man showed up. Um, and yet you think back to going somewhere like Europe or Egypt or African continent. You're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of years of energy and residualness that can be very overwhelming from people I know who are very intuitive, who have been to those. I've never been to those places, so I don't know what it's like, but I've talked to people who have been to those places, and it's like that would be just wild as all get out, scary as hell, and just fascinating to discover. So anyway, well, we've kind of gone on and on and on about that one, and I wanted to pull in
Which one?
Amy had found on the Grand Hotel Mackinac on Mackinac Island. And this is a shot of it today. Absolutely beautiful. Um, this
It's
is
in
the
the
original historical hotel.
It still looks
And
like the historical
it
picture.
still looks that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's got supposedly the longest porch there is. I don't know if that's true or not. And it's got rocking chairs all the way down. You
Yeah.
know,
It would rival some spots in the South. I'll give them that. I mean,
the thing
it probably is longer.
on Mackinac
Um,
Island, there's no cars. And
Nope.
no,
so
no electricity.
if you're staying at,
No.
well, there's like, they have electricity, but if you're staying,
Not now.
yeah, they have it. They do. I promise. They have electricity. But
Well,
if you're
okay. They must have added it after I left.
but if you're staying at the Grand Hotel, when you're at the dock, they have these coaches and they're drawn by these magnificent horses, Percherons, my favorite horse. These horses are magnificent, very smart. And it takes about 20 minutes to get from the dock up to the hotel. And we were there in June and it was cold. But, the thing about the Grand Hotel is that after 6 o'clock, you guys have to have on a jacket and a tie.
Yeah.
So, it's very prissy, if you will. During the day, no. But when Gary and I went, he used to work in travel and, go check out places. And he knew the manager of marketing there. And we were sitting talking and I said, so tell me, any stories about hauntings? And we got off on that. And she was telling me about some of the hauntings that people had seen there. And it was really cool. I loved hearing the stories. And she said there was one where people, I think it was a snowmobile accident or something, and it was a little girl and she was killed, unfortunately. But supposedly at a certain time, and it's snowing. Now, this hotel closes during the winter months. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like The Shining. Now, maybe that's why they didn't have lights, but they do have heat. They have to keep it because it's so cold. The pipes would burst. But supposedly, if people, the caregivers that are there in the winter or this or that are people on Mackinac Island, supposedly if you go to a certain spot at a certain time, you can see the headlights of the snowmobile and you can hear the little girl yelling. And and then
That's wild. I know they say that part of its haunted history includes rumors that it was built on top of an old burial ground with human remains still in the foundation.
Yep.
They say people have reported sightings of ghosts, women in Victorian dresses, men in top hats playing the piano, the ghost of a man named Harvey. I wonder if he looked like a rabbit, whose body was discovered months after his death and is said to haunt the hotel's theater. I mean, and just on and on and on. And I mean, there's a whole list here on Wikipedia and
we
Google AI on it. This is another cool shot that it looks like it's maybe a side porch or something, or
this is actually,
just,
I think this is the front entrance
Right.
when it was then. Now there's the road that comes up, and then you go up steps, and you go in the lobby. It depends on the entrance.
yeah.
But Gary and I spent 3 nights there, and here again, I felt a lot of residual energy. I did not see any spirits, but it's interesting to note. It's like going back in time because there's no cars and there's no, and we rented a buggy, and I've always wanted to drive a buggy, and I had a flash of a past life, me as a carriage driver, a buggy driver.
Oh, hey.
Rose, this is the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island, Michigan.
Yes,
is where it's located at.
Right.
Yeah.
And these are just some of the historical pictures of the hotel.
It still looks pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see here, like on the end, how high up off the ground they built this hotel with breakthrough enters for storms and water and stuff that would come in, so that it would have a way to flow through under the hotel without wiping out the hotel.
Well, actually, the hotel is built really high up on a hill. I mean, it's not near the water, near the bay or the lake. So if there's storm surge comes, is that like, what lake is that? Is that Lake Michigan or Lake I don't know.
Lake Michigan.
Well, there's 3 of the great 4 come together right up there. That's I'm sorry, that's Sault Ste. Marie. But so it's built up high, but it's just incredible to go there because it's really, I mean, you see people dressed like we are, but the architecture is really, it's a Victorian building, and it's like going back to the Victorian era. And actually, for people that go there, if you're not, it's expensive to stay there, but if you're not staying there, you can pay, I think, X amount of dollars, and they will give you a tour of the hotel. And so, but not after 6 at night.
Nope.
Yeah. Well, I know, just looking at it, it reminds me of, especially down in Florida, when I lived down in Florida and all along the Gulf Coast region, where we do get pretty big storm surges from hurricanes and storms and stuff that come in. Older homes tended to survive those storms because they were built up off the ground.
Right.
They usually had breakaway siding or walling or whatever they wanted to call it that went under their house, so that when the water rushed in, it could just flow right through from one side to the other side and go right on out the other way. And where a lot of homes started really kind of getting wiped out from all of that were homes that were built on a concrete foundation on the ground. And when the water hits, it's got nowhere to go. It's got to take it out,
Yeah.
There was the major hurricane, and it doesn't have a name. that hit in the Keys back right after World War One ended, and there were as part of a reintegration into civilian life. They were building that long causeway and train trestle to go from mainland Florida out into the Keys. You're going over the ocean, and it's it was before we had, it was like in 1920s, when did World War One end? Around the end of 1920, so it was like a couple of years after that. And a lot of these men were down there to work on building the railroad tracks and starting the foundations for the causeway that was going to go in. And they didn't have, radar and hurricane planes and all that kind of stuff like we have today. So, you went by those who grew up on those areas to tell you, this is going to be a bad one. You better leave. And somebody, I remember my story correctly, one of the weathermen that lived down in that area was looking at what was new type of radar of trying to see where the weather was going on with the storms. And it was something very new, and most people didn't trust it. And he saw this hurricane, and from what he was seeing on the very basic kind of stuff they had at that time was like freaking him out. And he's like, telegraphing back to the mainland, y'all got to get somebody down here and get these men out of here, because this is going to kill everybody. Well, by the time they finally got somebody to believe him and sent a train down to go pick up all these people, they get on the train, and as they're going back, the storm hits. And it literally, with the storm surge and the winds, literally blew the train off the tracks into the water, and the majority of those men all died because they couldn't get out of the train. They couldn't, where are you going to go? And it took days before they even realized that something had happened down there. It's not like you turn on your TV and you go, oh my God, they got hit by a hurricane. I mean, sometimes it could be weeks before they would know an area had been hit really bad, from a hurricane. And this was very early days of weather forecasting.
When people wouldn't listen.
Here's the Grand Hotel now. Do you see it?
Yeah, that's it now.
Yep.
And I had that picture, and then I lost it. I don't know what I did with it. But if memory serves, one of the weathermen that talked them into finally trying to go rescue the men off of the Keys was someone who survived the Galveston hurricane.
The big storm.
In 1904, I think it was, where they had no idea what was coming. And it practically just wiped Galveston off the map. I mean, there was a Catholic orphanage there, and it was days later before they found the children, and they were all like tied together. The nuns had tied all the kids together so they wouldn't lose each other to try to get them out. And of course, the minute one person got swept, took all the rest of them with us. And again, a massive loss of life, that simply because people didn't know and didn't understand the power of those kind of storms. I mean, you live on the Gulf Coast, you grow up hearing this stuff all of your life. Every time a storm is coming, you know, from the minute we start knowing it's coming, there are people that are boarding up windows and packing up their vehicles, or you know, laying in supplies if they're going to ride it out, you know. And I mean, I have been through more hurricanes than I can count, and three of them were category fives, and we never left. We rode through every
Girl.
one of
Mm.
them. Would I do that today? I seriously doubt it. I would probably get in my car and get the hell out of Dodge.
Mhm.
But I
The-
know a lot more now than we did 50 years ago, you know.
Yeah.
So,
I
and
pulled some cards concerning the island.
uh-huh.
Because like Mel said, there used to be a fort there. It's no longer there, but there used to be a
Yeah.
fort there. And I asked my guides, I said, what do you want people to know about that fort? And the cards they gave me were the revenge card, the dismemberment card. Just think about this, y'all. The
It was a fort.
imprisonment card. Being trapped. When you're being attacked by somebody and you can't go anywhere, you're trapped. And of course, they had families there.
Yeah.
So just think of all, you know.
Well, you have to
Just,
remember it was a fort. It was a military establishment.
Well,
yeah.
they have
So
it now.
people
There's Colonial Mackinac, and what they've done is there was a fort there. It was right on the lake, and but what they've done now is it's not they've it's a replica. You know, they found like some remnants of it, but they
yeah.
built a
Fort
replica.
Michilimackinac. Yeah.
Michelle Mackinac, yeah, and it's we were there.
Mhm.
And what really impressed me was how they it's called Colonial Michelle Mackinac, Colonial Michelle Mackinac. But what impressed me, I was more interested in how they cooked. What
Yeah.
food did they eat?
Oh,
And what happened was archaeologists found some old outhouses, and when they went through the remnants, they would find certain types of bones and things like that, and that's how they knew their diets and things like that. It was a lot of fish, a lot of wildlife. Uh, and the only thing that was there was Native Americans, and then, the settlers. I don't think I would have wanted to have lived there, right? And especially in the winter, things got really rough.
Yeah. Had to be really hardy, you know.
Right. But it's really interesting. Here again, I just really loved the lore of it and going through it. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm kind of a geek about stuff like that.
And they're a lot shorter than we are now. They were a lot shorter. Like
But
5'4", 5'5".
they
I
do
mean,
they do a good job there of explaining,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
about the fort. We took we had we had a little tour guide taking us around, but you can actually go in the houses and see how they lived. Usually one room. I'm talking about Fort Michelle and Mackinac, but it was really cool.
Yeah, I clicked the wrong button.
That's all right.
Um,
But people say that these are firsthand accounts. People see soldiers that are skeletons walking around, skeleton soldiers.
oh, cool.
Yeah, they see skeleton soldiers
Very
in their get up.
Yeah.
They see people they look like us, but they're they aren't see-through. They look like real people, and they're in there cooking, cleaning. A couple people actually had a ghost talk to them.
Oh, wow.
I can
Yeah,
believe that. Yeah.
a lot of stuff is
Um,
going on there.
That would
well,
be,
it's
I love to visit places like that. It's just,
Me too.
oh
I've
yeah.
been there.
I mean,
You
I'm
go
not,
to a lot of the old Civil War places down here in the South. Um, a couple of the like the big plantations or uh, big hotels that the Union
Myrtle.
soldiers would take over and turn into hospitals. And
Mhm.
because they thought so highly of the rebel victims, right? They would shuffle them up to the attic and make them go up to the attic, thinking it would be worse treatment for them. Not understanding that in the South, the attic was the coolest room in the house because you had these huge levelers that opened up and you could open up all of these things, and so you got all the fresh breeze in from the upper levels of the house that didn't get down into the bottom levels of the house, and it's like, well, we got something over on
Oops.
them anyway. They didn't bother to learn their architecture very well, but I mean, it's little things like that as you go through and go around stuff that you learn. That's just like,
Mhm.
wow, I never knew that. I've lived here all my life and I never knew that, or somebody starts talking about something, you're like, I've been there a million times. I never thought to ask that question or to go look there, or something like that.
that's a lot of
Yeah,
times there were big trees around properties, and heat rises, but the
yeah,
trees, like the air conditioning, it shaded the house, so it kept it
exactly.
cooler. You know,
Yeah.
Ex-
it's funny that we think we're advanced, and we are, but when we hear about things like you're talking about, Sherry, or like Amy, you're talking about, nowadays we think, oh, that's primitive. And going back to, let's say, people would keep their animals in the house, or they would live upstairs. Well, the reason for that is because one cow produces a lot of
Not a
heat.
milk or
So,
a
yeah,
hot heat.
so
Oh,
in the Middle Ages, they before they had fireplaces, they would have a fire in the middle of the house, whatever, you know. But they would have all the animals in the house, like the cows and the chickens and the sheep, because they produced a lot of heat, and it helped
plus
keep.
we kept people from stealing them, you know, as
that
well.
too.
Well, it was more for heat, believe it or not, in the
Yeah,
little villages.
I mean, um, you go down here in the South and you go into the old buildings and you see these big, tall windows, and you see like the tops of the windows open up. They like swing out or in. They don't like open and close. They just swing back and forth. Um, because depending on the time of day and if it's hot or cold, that's like getting your own AC because you've got that wind coming through, Um, uh, as people went along, they had attic fans, which usually it was in the hallway or in some main area of the house. When you opened up the levelers to that and turned on that attic fan, I mean, you could practically get sucked up into the damn ceiling if you stood right directly underneath it. We lived in an older house like that when my son was about 2, and he learned real quick that when he wanted to run up and down the hall, if the attic fan was on, he had to skirt the wall to get around where the fan was because it would start to suck him upwards, he would literally, you'd see his little shirt start to lift up. It's like, okay, no, let's get away from there. But
You know,
we didn't have air conditioning in that house.
we had a fan, and a lot of people had attic fans. We didn't have one, um, but the fan wasn't in our room, so
Yeah.
we were poor. But people, it's funny. A lot of things back then, they had a function. For example, hurricane shutters or shutters on houses. You
Yeah.
ever notice why they would paint them like white, green, or blue, or maybe a lighter purple? Do you ever notice? Do you know why they did that?
Mm-mm.
Never gives one. Well, they didn't have screens in those days, and you had to open a window to try to stay cool in the summer, and you'd try to get a cross breeze going. But if you shut the shutters, they had those little leveler things.
Slats.
Yeah.
Oh, the slats. Okay.
Right. The reason, like colors like white, green, and blue, and purple, they repel mosquitoes. Certain colors repel mosquitoes.
Now, that's something they do down here is like outside on porches or patios. They will paint the ceiling outside sky blue, and it prevents the wasps and the bees from trying to build a nest on your patio or porch because they just see the blue and think it's the sky, so they got to go somewhere else.
So, put it to the test. In the summertime, go out with no DEET on you and see if you wear white, green, blue, or, a lighter purple, how many mosquito bites you get. And then at some point wear like a dark red or an orange or a black or a cyan and
You're going to get eaten alive.
Right. Because wearing lighter, cool tone clothing makes you less visible to a mosquito. I mean, it makes sense.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, it's just like down here, you had what they call, you see the big old veranda porches that wrapped around the houses. But once screening kind of became available, a lot of them were turned to what they call sleeping porches.
Right.
And that was because in the summertime, it was too hot to sleep in the house. So they had this screening around the porch, and everybody would drag the mattresses out on the porch.
On the porch.
And that's where everyone would sleep, would be out on the porch. So you would get the cool air. I mean, we used to think it was a treat when we'd go visit some family that lived in the older houses. We got to go sleep outside on the porch. That was pretty cool. And you don't miss the AC, or you didn't back then in places
you didn't know what it was like. You never had it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they had air conditioning in public buildings in the South until like the late 50s, early 60s.
They had ceiling fans that would move the air, and a lot of buildings in the 50s and 60s, late 50s and early 60s didn't have AC.
No.
I remember the first time I was ever in AC, and I was like, I didn't like it. It was too cold. I mean, you just, if you've never had it, you don't miss it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. My grandparents' house that they lived in for almost 60 years never had AC. It had heating, but it didn't have AC.
We didn't have AC growing up. We had a bunch of trees planted around the house, and then in the summer, in Kentucky, it gets hot, and we would go to the swimming pool, But in August, the polio vaccines came out in the late 50s. But even in August, which is really hot in Kentucky, my mother would still get nervous, even though we had our polio shots. She'd still get nervous because in the South in August and in early September, it was hot, so kids would go to a swimming pool. Well, polio was highly contagious, and so a lot of them came down with polio. So the idea during those months, you just don't go to the pool. And Mom was still nervous about it, even though we had been vaccinated. Yeah. So there was a lot of functional things that people did that today we kind of chuckle about, but it made perfect sense back then.
Yeah, because they didn't have the protections that we have today for those things.
Anyway, that happy note.
Well, guys, we've got to wrap this up because I know Mel's got to go. I've got a live stream starting in 30 minutes for my members. So I got to go get ready for that and take the dog out to go pee before I start the live stream. And Amy and I will be back on the 12th of December. We're every second Friday. We do monthly mysteries Friday afternoon. So hopefully we can talk Mel into coming back and joining us again.
I'd love to. I like, it's fun when Gary and I go on haunted tours and things. I mean, I do believe in spirit, obviously. I'm a psychic and I believe in residual energy. But the thing I like are the stories, the folklore.
Mhm.
That fascinates
Yeah.
me. Like we were doing tonight, we're talking about, all kinds of different things and how people did it back then. And to me, that's just, and people like to hear about things like that. It's fascinating.
Well, if we
Yeah.
screw up and we manage to blow ourselves to the point that we don't have electricity and stuff anymore, the survivors are going to be the ones that know what the old folks used to do and know how
Like
to roll.
us. Yes,
I
we
mean,
know.
I would tell you who would
So-
survive would be people in at least equatorial Africa, because in a lot of those villages, there's no running water, there's no electricity, there's no refrigeration. So they grow their food. They cook on open fires outside. They roast their coffee. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
They make their houses out of, it's a combination of manure and mud and straw. Now, and then they put it around this frame, and when it hardens, it's like adobe. It's like a brick. It ain't going nowhere. And
Yeah.
it doesn't smell. I mean,
Right.
it's not unclean, even though it's got manure in it. The manure holds everything together, and it also keeps bugs out, believe it or not.
Mhm.
So it doesn't smell, and it was pretty amazing to me. And it would be like, they don't run to the grocery.
No.
Oh, before I forget, Mel, I am humbly inviting you, if you would like, to come onto my channel and do a show.
I would love that. Thank you. I would feel honored. Thank you.
There
You're
you go.
welcome.
Well, I'll let
Thank you.
y'all work that out. I'm going to wrap us up and
I'll run
say
too.
goodbye. I'm sorry to the
Thank
chat.
you.
I didn't interact as much as I normally do. We
We were
got
just
involved
excited
in
because we had Mel.
storytelling aspect and just you
I
got
like
a bunch
it.
of you got a couple of Southerners here who doesn't know how to stop telling stories, and
I
then
like it because it was organic and it just kind of flowed where it needed to.
that's it.
Mhm.
That's it exactly. So we will be back with monthly mysteries on the 12th of December. So that's in a few weeks. And we will see you then. If you have any ideas, hauntings, cold cases, anything you would like to see us cover and do readings on, please email us. Let either me or Amy and let us know. And then that way we can go in and we can look up the information and be prepared to look into it. So,
And if you would like to be on the show with us because you have a story of your own, let us know.
there you go.
And we will gladly have you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having
Absolutely.
me. I felt honored. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
welcome.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
All right, y'all.
Sherry Amy will give you my phone number and how to text me. Text me, because if you email me, I probably won't read it. Not that
Well, I don't have your number.
I'll give it to you.
Sure,
I'll give it to you.
It's not that I won't read it, but I get so many emails. Like today, I got over 300 emails, and there's just no way I can go through them all. So,
Yeah. It's like I email them and then I send them a text and say, I just emailed you.
that's exactly how to do it.
Exactly. So I'll make sure she gets your info. Thank y'all
Thank
for
you,
members.
thank you.
I'll see you in 30 minutes for the live stream. And y'all have a great weekend, a happy Thanksgiving. If I don't see you in the next couple of weeks before Turkey Day hits, and have a wonderful weekend.
Yes.
Thank you.